Alan works with us on everything. Alan, you're up.
Thanks so much, Margaret, and thanks to each and every one of you. And it really is an honor and a pleasure to be here with you today. And, if you turn over to the agenda, I think you see the last update that I sent out.
Yesterday.
Yesterday. This is my big concern as we go forward. The debt situation that we have in the United States of America is absolutely appalling. Right now, today, $15.3 trillion in debt. In this single day, the United States government will spend $4 billion. By the end of the year, the United States will be $16.2 trillion in debt. And the problem with that is there's a little thing called a debt to GDP ratio. And for the first time since World War II, we're upside down in that debt to GDP ratio. By the end of the year, we will be 106.2%, which means that we are owing more than what we're producing. And what does that mean? When you look at some of these numbers, you understand what is happening. A $3.8 trillion budget that was proposed, $1.9 trillion of new taxes, almost $400 million of new estate tax, or as we call it, the death tax. You look at what's going on with gasoline prices and think about the second and third order effects that has on the marine industry. These are the things that cause me to have a lot of headaches up there in Washington, D.C. We talk about what's going to happen next year. In January 2013, if we don't come to a recognition, the largest tax increase the United States of America has ever seen will happen next January. Because with the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, the health care law that I'm sure many of you know about, 11 new taxes will start to kick in starting next January 2013 out to 2018. One of those new taxes is a 3.8% real estate transactions tax. The Bush tax cuts. This is not about the quote-unquote 1%. The Bush tax cuts were across every single income tax bracket in the United States of America. When those things expire, every one of those tax brackets will see anywhere from a 4% to a 7% increase. Now think about it. How many out there operate as S corporations, LLCs? You do your taxes by your personal income tax rate. You're going to see an increase there. And if there is an increase there, what does that mean for your business? What does that mean for you being able to hire more people to expand your business? What does that mean when this healthcare law fully kicks in, which means 159 new government agencies and bureaucracies, 16,000 new IRS agents, $500 billion of cuts to Medicare, and this new panel of 15 unelected bureaucrats that will make the pricing controls on Medicare. I was talking to the young lady from Regents Bank back there. Dodd-Frank. We could have gone back to the Glass-Steagall Act, which could have kept a separation between commercial banking and investment banking, but instead we went to Dodd-Frank. And what is happening with our small community banks? Too many regulators are coming down, and they're reclassifying good loans, making our small community banks take those loans that are good and classify them as negative assets, and there's only so much assets negatively they can carry. And that is affecting their ability to get capital out to our small business owners, which is the lifeline, is the lifeblood. When you think about those second and third order small businesses, that truly is the lifeblood of the marine industry. The president came out yesterday and said that he's looking at taking the corporate business tax rate from 35% down to 28%. But there's a little known thing that we're not talking about, and he's not talking about. Yesterday, the Wall Street Journal editorial page talked about how dividends tax, which is currently 15%, there's a move to take dividends tax to 44.1% in the United States of America. Capital gains tax. When we sat there at the State of the Union address, and of course Warren Buffett's secretary was sitting up there in the First Lady's box, and there was an absolute intellectually dishonest statement that was made, saying that Warren Buffett's secretary pays more in taxes than Warren Buffett does. Those were apples and carrots, because it's the difference between personal income tax rate and capital gains tax rate. But the reason why that was said, because now there's talk about taking capital gains tax from 15% to 30 to 35%. What happens to investment? if capital gains goes to 30 to 35%? What happens to our marine industry if we continue to have high costs of operating, fuel prices, and investment costs? Trillions of dollars of capital. Who do we talk to about that? Trillions of dollars of capital is sitting offshore, away from the United States of America, that is ready and willing to come back here. But yet yesterday the president said, if we take it from 35 down to 28%, then we're going to go after the money, the capital that is sitting offshore. That's not how we're going to get production and manufacturing and economic growth back here in the United States of America. I believe we should take dividends tax and zero it out. I believe capital gains tax, we can take it from 15%, we can bring it down to 10%. Our corporate business tax rate, which is second highest in the world, Japan's looking to lower theirs, so we will be number one in the world. We can take it from 35% down to 20 to 21%, and we can eliminate all loopholes. We can eliminate all deductions. Our personal income tax rate, we have to move away from the progressive tax code system that we have. Why? 47% of wage-earning households in the United States of America are paying zero federal income taxes. 53%. Now, I was in the Army. I wasn't in the Navy. But I know this. If one half of a boat is rowing, that boat is going in a circle. And that is exactly what is happening in the United States of America, where one half of the boat is rowing. I think we can go to a flat tax system. I think anywhere between 13 to 16%. And then you lower the deductions. Child tax credit, mortgage interest tax deductions, charitable contributions. Simplify the tax code. Think about how much now our subchapter S corporations, our LLCs, will have in operating capital. If we go from that high end of 35, 38%, we bring you down to 16% at the max, maybe. What can you do with that capital now that you have for your small businesses within the marine industry? Those are the those are the pro-business type of solutions we need to have. Let me talk to you about a simple thing that I think a lot of people have not paid attention to. How many folks here have heard of Scarabeo 9? No one. That's a sad thing. Scarabeo 9 is a Chinese-made oil rig that was rented out to a Spanish company called Repsol that is now being in place 66 miles off the coast of Florida, that will be drilling in waters that are deeper than Deepwater Horizon. And if you understand slant drilling, that means that underneath the water, up to 40 miles, you can slant drill into the outer continental shelf of the United States of America. This Chinese oil rig, Scarabeo 9, does not meet any of our standards or classifications for oil rigs. And it's sitting very close to the Gulf Stream. This is something that our administration provided technical advice and expertise in order for them to be in place 66 miles off our coast. But yet the Keystone XL project was something that they denied. These are the type of things that in the last 2 years have caused me to have so much gray hair. And the reports are already out that somewhere up around Orlando, there's $6 gasoline. Think about the second, third order effects of the high gasoline prices. Think about what's going to happen to commodity prices. Think of what's going to happen to the price of meals in restaurants, things of that nature. Think about the billions of dollars that will be lost in revenue for our economy just because of the high gasoline prices. Think about how less people will take their boats out. Think about how less people will come here to Florida on vacation season. There's been an 83% increase in gasoline prices since Inauguration Day in 2009. We have the energy resources here. We need to set the conditions for those energy resources to be supplied and utilized right here. And then at the third order, we can export it so we can get the revenues from that as well. This is a very important time for the future and the legacy of the United States of America, and especially our private sector industry. I want to close by saying this. For the first time, people that are receiving federal government benefits are outpacing the average disposable income of an American citizen. If we are making more people dependent upon government, who is paying for the government? Who is paying for those benefits? The more of your hard-earned taxpayer dollars, the more of your capital that is going to operate the state instead of growing your business. When the entitlement class, and I'm not talking about Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, but when an entitlement class starts to outpace the production class, what's the incentive for producers? That's why when you go to Western Florida, you see all those Venezuelan flags, because of the people that left that country who were the producers, because the state took over. We don't have anywhere to go. And that's why this is an important election cycle coming up in November. That's why the trillions of dollars of capital that is sitting on the sidelines waiting to see what the decision will be. Now, let me tell you about what happened with this whole redistricting thing, okay? I have never served in the State House. I've never served in the State Senate. I have never been up to Tallahassee to meet any of these gentlemen. I'm not part of that system. The only thing I am is your representative. I work for you. You are our constituents. You're just like the soldiers that I once had to serve when I was a commander. For whatever reason, they decided the CD22, which is what we call a swing congressional district, it is a D+1 district that we won by almost 10 percentage points in 2010. That means you have an advantage, 1% advantage of registered Democrats over Republicans. In Tallahassee, they decided to redraw the line so that this district went from a D+1 to a D+6, which means that it is 57% Democrat. They did not have to do that because there were constituents that sent up 3 different maps that showed they could have kept it anywhere from even to a D1 to at worst a D+2, which would have kept it as a very competitive district. But they decided against a lot of recommendations of the constituents. There was an opportunity that came forward when Tom Rooney decided that he wanted to run in one of the new districts that is going to be north of Lake Okeechobee, all the way over west to Charlotte County. So he asked, in moving there, would I consider going north and backfilling his current CD 16, which becomes CD 18, which means North Palm Beach County, Martin County, and then St. Lucie County. I know a lot of people in the papers are saying that I'm going to a heavily Republican district. I am not. It's an R+1, which means it's still in that band of excellence of being a swing district. There's 1% advantage of registered Republicans. And that's where we're going to be running. I prayed about this. I talked to my wife and my daughters about this. But the thing I want you all to understand, and I told Carlos this before, my office is still there for you. I don't care where I am. You call upon me because I understand how important this industry is, not just for this local area, but how important this industry is for the United States of America. We need to get back to being the preeminent shipbuilders in this world. I want to see the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show be the greatest boat show that the world has ever known. And I also want to take that type of ethic up to CD18 to expand the ethic that you have here up to that marine industry as well. So I'm still here. And who knows what's going to happen in November, but Margaret knows if she needs something, she can call this office and we make it happen. And I think every one of you sitting out there know that. This is, without a doubt, the most important decision, the most important election that we will make. Probably the most important election going back to the Civil War. That's how competing visions we have out here for this country. We cannot continue on with this path. In 2022, the estimation is this. The United States of America will have a debt of $26 trillion if we continue on this path. How many of you all have children? How many of you have grandchildren? Do you want to leave your children or grandchildren with a $26 trillion debt? Right now, today, every man, woman, child in America would have to write a check for $48,000 to get rid of our debt. what will it be in 2022 if we don't correct this ship? So, that being said, what are your questions real quick?
Questions, come on, you guys.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if it's a question, but as far as going to mean test anyway, somewhere along the line, it's in the cards that they're going to do eventually anyway, as far as the titles. One of the things I have a problem with, if they're going to mean test, I've been working since I was 13 years old. I've paid in Social Security, I don't know, a couple $100,000. Plus, I also get paid now the Medicare. And so you add all this up. It's not very unfair because I own a small business. I pay both ways. I pay my own personal Social Security, and then also my company has to pay it. So I'm paying at the rate of 15%. I have X number of $200,000 now. If they mean test, my only complaint would be, I want my money that I've put since I'm 13 and not got $1 in interest on. I'd like to have that money back. And then from there, you go mean test for me.
Okay. The interesting point that the gentleman just brought out is we're talking about Social Security and Medicare. Let me give you an understanding about the budget of the United States of America. Mandatory spending and discretionary spending. 62% of the budget that we have is on mandatory spending. Net interest on the debt, Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. I could zero out the entire defense budget. I sit on the Armed Services Committee, and you will still have close to $1 trillion deficit. Now, what we're talking about that has to be done. Social Security, the most important thing is to get Americans back to work. There is no such thing as an independent trust fund. It's been robbed. It's zero. It's IOUs. They used it up. So we need to get it back to that independent trust fund account. Now, I think that one of the Simpson-Bowles recommendations as far as Social Security, taking that eligibility age, just bumping it up 3 years, that will give you a lot of savings that will help you to make Social Security solvent. In 1950, just to give you a comparative analysis, in 1950 you had close to 16 Americans working for one recipient of Social Security. Where do you think we are today?
3 to 1.
3 to 1. And in about 3 to 4 years, estimates 2.5 to 1. So what we have to start looking at, and with Medicare, the average American is paying about $110,000 in the Medicare and getting a little over $300,000 in benefits back on Medicare. One of the things we're talking about doing is indexing a premium support plan according to your income that you have for Medicare. Now, that doesn't affect anyone that is 55 years above at all. But for me, at 51, if we don't do something to reform Social Security and Medicare, it's not going to be there for me. The actuaries of Medicare and Social Security testified last year before the House Energy and Commerce Committee. In 8 years, Medicare is bankrupt. 8 years, Medicare is bankrupt. 4 to 5 years after that, Social Security will start to have degradation of benefits anywhere from 25 to 30%. Which is why this whole thing about a payroll tax cut is one of the most insidious things that I've ever heard. And that's why I did not support it. Because what we're actually doing is pushing Social Security closer to the edge and into the abyss. You know, employer side, 6.2% on either side for payroll taxes. What we said, and what they said in Washington, D.C., on the employee side, we will cut that down from 6.2 to 4.2%, and that's supposed to spur on the economy. In the first year of doing that, Social Security ran a deficit. In the first year of doing that, the United States economy had the most anemic GDP growth that we've seen in quite some time. 0.4%, 1.0%, 1.3%, 2.1%. If you really want to spur on the economy, you should have taken out the employer side, given them the 2%, and they could reinvest that capital into expanding their business. But if you wanted to do something for the American people, you take that 2%, you apply it back to every single tax bracket, you make it retroactive back to January the 1st of 2011, and that's how you do it. This is a gimmick. It's a $40 gimmick. Now let me tell you the truth about what's happening, and I don't know if you saw the CBS investigative report that they picked up on. One of the means by which we quote unquote paying for this is that we're raising the fees on loan guarantees for government-sponsored enterprises. FHA, Fannie, Freddie. A person going out to buy a $200,000 home will see $9,000 to $10,000 fee increase over the life of their loan. And it's not going back into the Social Security Trust Fund, it's going back to the General Treasury, which means we'll spend it. Those are the type of things, like I said, that drives you crazy up in Washington, D.C. And that's one of the reasons why this payroll tax is a horrible gimmick. Carlos.
We understand you're going to fight for us in the new district. What do we need to do in the current district, and who are you recommending that we support?
Well, as you know, Adam Hasner has come into it, and I think that Adam Hasner is a good guy to support. And look, I'm not going to tell you who to support, but I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to challenge you. What are your principles? Do you want to see your industry survive? Then you got to make a stand. You know, people will tell you anything to get your money and get your support. And then the next thing you know, you find yourself in a situation where they sold you out. They voted for a health care law. They voted for Dodd-Frank, which is destroying our small community banks especially. We don't need that type of stuff. You know, I wrote an op-ed piece about the marine industry. That is, I think, what should be a litmus test. You know, have someone come out and personally write an op-ed piece about how they see the marine industry, how they see the importance of the marine industry. Not just building that yacht, but then afterwards, and the servicing. That's how we, grow jobs. That's how you spur on an economy. So I think that, what the industry has to do is stand upon principle and stand upon, what is going to be your future. And you have to get behind the individual that's going to do that for you. And like I said, no matter what, I don't care what your issues are, you come find me. I'll take care of it. So you don't need to worry about banking against someone because you feel you're trapped in a corner. I don't want you to do that. Do what is right. And it's very simple. My mom used to say something to me that, when you're young, you don't really understand. But then all of a sudden you realize that old Southern lady, she was pretty smart. She said a man must stand for something or else he'll fall for anything. That's where we are. Nobody? Anyone?
How about a big hand for him?
No, no hand.
In Alan's honor, when we do a door prize, we're going to give the countdown to Obama's last day. Right, Greg? Right now it's 332 days, 15 hours, 9 minutes, and 13 seconds. And Kay knows that I can't set a clock because Greg had to set it for me. But we're going to count down the days for you.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thanks a lot.